As if presidents had that kind of power. Or vice presidents. I don't know if any of you got to watch the debate last night. What debate? I thought it was Saturday Night Live initially, but it evolved.
Become more and more similar, so you can kind of just watch one or the other. You don't have to do both.
But I figure, we'll have plenty of people telling us what happened, so you might as well just read them. And as some pundits pointed out, at no time ever did a debate between the vice presidential candidates ever have any impact on the election. Apparently, because I don't know.
Who are the vice presidential candidates?
See? Well, Kamala picked Tim Walz, who's the governor of Minnesota.
So older, white man?
He's not that old, and he is as Caucasian as they get. And he is male, considering. The other presidential candidate picked J.D. Vance, who is famous for writing a great book about his childhood and career. And I read it years ago and thought, oh, this guy's going to be a great politician someday. And there he is. Wow. And a lot of people were saying that he clearly dominated in the debate because that's what he does. He's a debater and a lawyer and a Yale graduate. But the trouble was, this is the thing, as faculty, we're not supposed to take political sides, and I'm comfortable with that because, of course, all the years I was in the military, you're not supposed to voice any political interest because the military is supposed to be we have nothing to do with politics, separation of military and state, or something like that. And then, so that whole career, you didn't show no signs or anything. And then as a teacher, we're not supposed to be on a particular side because some people think we have too much influence. I don't know where they're from, but in any case, the issue usually is in the media that people that get too much college, which apparently you can get too much college. I'm not sure how that would work, but end up becoming liberal. Theoretically, I'm conservative. There are plenty of conservative people that I think are brilliant, and some of the liberal positions seem like they're so far out there that they don't have feet on the ground, or something. But the trouble, of course, recently is that those that are associated most with conservatism have joined forces with people that don't believe in truth or facts. Like several times, for example, last night, the moderator pointed out that things that J.D. Vance was saying were completely false. And Vance critiqued them by saying, but the rules we agreed to said you're not going to fact check, because that would be bad for him. Because taking the position of supporting his presidential candidate, they're invested in a whole bunch of things which are false narratives, which seem to just confuse people. Apparently, quite a lot of people are already confused and actually appreciate that point of view, even though it's blatantly false. Things like, the election was stolen, and you know, there were what, 60 different cases that were tried, and every single one of them lost. Plus, of course, we actually do have a president who isn't that one, and so on. So, and that's just one example. You know, and then you know, people eating cats in Springfield. That's, you know, how many people are actually getting threatened for saying that that's not happening. The latest one I saw was, I think a member of the government there said that, you know, these are all legally here, you know, and invited, you know, and so on. And their life was threatened for doing that. So this is a really interesting election cycle, because it seems like we don't have the normal conservative liberal conflict. Instead, what we've got is the kind of moderate, you know, we're having trouble with all of these things, fact-based situation, versus someone who's creating a narrative that's not based on things that are demonstrably the case. And so that makes it seem almost like, well, wait a minute, as a teacher, you should at least point out that we have ways of knowing stuff, right? And even though it's social-based, it's a social-based understanding of knowledge. You know, knowledge is basically a socially constructed worldview, right? And by the way, as teaching philosophy, we're moving in the direction of how that occurred. You know, that's really the final stage, you know, of the course, because I'm just taking us up to now. So it seems like it's almost not fair to say we're not supposed to take sides, when what we've got is a situation where there's approximately 40% of our society are insistent on things that are demonstrably false.
Which is curious. Why do you think people gravitate towards that personality?
Well, there's lots of reasons, and it's interesting because J.D. Vance wouldn't have been, I would not have expected him to be on that side.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's taken that position is because he, like there's a lot of examples. I think of Dinesh D'Souza as one of my favorite examples of this. When I first started reading Dinesh D'Souza in the 70s, he was brilliant, young, you know, and had lots of important things to say about the way that the socially constructed world, you know, treated things like race, for example. There's one book that I was very impressed with. The first one really was so this book, The End of Racism. That was kind of neat because Dinesh D'Souza had come on scholarship to Stanford from India, where he was a part of the Brahmin class, right? You know, they have a caste system there where individuals are born into a particular caste and they're expected to have certain roles and relationships to really a hierarchy of who can do what.
And the Brahmin caste would be like a priest to it?
Yeah, educated top of the elite, really.
Okay.
So he was honored in his society, and they came here and discovered that he was black. And he was shocked because, like, wait a minute, you know, there is no real category of race. You know, biologists, you know, he points out, don't decide, you know, can't look at your DNA, at least not yet, and determine. I mean, they can figure out what you should look like. I mean, they do that all the time with, like, Cleopatra, you know, Tutankhamun, you know, this is what they would have looked like.
Mm-hmm.
My ancestors, the Neanderthal, you know, they figured out that they had reddish hair, freckles, and light skin. You
How
know,
did they figure that out?
DNA, genetics.
So the DNA just came from European areas that people typically have those facial features? I don't understand.
Anybody familiar with how they determined the DNA of the Neanderthal? They find DNA in bones and they can reconstruct
They take it out of like a sack of amber and then use a frog to finish off the DNA sequence.
no, that's a movie.
Oh.
So these are what I understand to be genetic or images of what Neanderthals might have looked like. And I have 1.2%, and the most anybody has is like 2%, and those are the Basques from that area in Spain where they were isolated. And there was supposed to be more, but essentially the Neanderthals interbred with Homo sapiens, and as a result of that, gradually became less and less in the gene pool. But if you're Caucasian, you probably have at least 1 to 2% of I took the Geo 24 or whatever, you know, you send your swab in and then you get your results back and they say up to 24,000 years ago. Well, that's not very helpful, you know. And we all start out in Kenya and, you know, we go in various directions and your mother went this way, you know, came all the way up to Finland and then all the way back down. Well, not all the way back down, but so if you're so the argument is that if you're Caucasian, it's a Neanderthal gene that is partially responsible. Also has to do with how we process salt. There's other things involved. I'm not really that into what's going on with it. But in any case, Dinesh D'Souza pointing out that, you know, we're all human basically, but from one society to another, there's different categories of tribe. You know, basically, you know who you belong to, and so on. That create these socially constructed relationships from one community to another. Coming from India, he knew that it was totally different there, you know, than here, and so he wrote the book saying the end of racism. It's a socially constructed thing. All we have to do is stop talking about it, and it will go away. That seems obviously true, actually, and yet at the same time, it obviously hasn't a chance of going away because it's depending on where you live, it's embedded in the local culture.
You don't even realize how embedded it is in your culture until you go to another culture and realize how differently people see it.
Which is one of the nice things about going and visiting other places or learning other languages, where you have the same kind of shock. That in French, everything is sexed. You know, everything is either male or female. Did I talk about this already? No? Like a table is la table, right? Le chaise is masculine. You go figure why the French think chairs are masculine and the tables are feminine.
I think we all know why.
I'm not sure, why that might be the case. Trees, everything, and they've done studies and discovered that yes, people actually treat things with masculine nouns as if it's more masculine, and feminine things as if they're more feminine. Big one is death. for example,
Mhm.
in French, death is feminine.
Mhm.
And so people think of death as feminine, as just it has like a personality
Uh-huh.
that's feminine, as opposed to a masculine death that's very, masculine.
So is birth masculine?
Birth? What I'm thinking of as birth is a verb, but yes, it should be also a noun. But everything I can think of in French is a verb, so it doesn't. It can be either.